Welcome back, everyone, to our second episode of Movies You Missed. I am so excited to have our group back. Riley, Daniel, Jason, and Catherine. Welcome back, everybody.
Yay.
They're all tired. In case you don't know what Movies You Missed are about, or you missed the first episode, what we are doing is we have divided ourselves up into age groups. Catherine and I are actually going to let our age show in this series.
Consciously show.
And the rules are simple. We are trying to find films that the other age group has not seen. Catherine and I were not able to pick any films after the year 2000. Riley, Daniel, and Jason could not pick anything before the year 2000. And we wanted to create some conversation surrounding why these films mattered to us and how they compare one another again, and how they compare up against one another. The other rule, and this is key, especially for tonight, is that, yeah, Kat's already agreeing with me. Everyone on that team must have seen the film, must have seen it. So this week we are moving into Catherine's favorite genre, which is horror. Last week we took on action films. This week we take on horror films. And it has to be a film that both of us have seen, which is truly, truly crucial, which we'll talk about. So for our film this week, we have chosen Joe Dante's classic cult hit, Gremlins, from 1984. But Daniel, why don't you tell us what you youngins have picked? And we'll talk about that first tonight. What did you guys pick for your horror genre?
Yeah, so we decided to go with, a classic spooky film. We went with The Conjuring. The Perrin family moves into a farmhouse where they start to experience some paranormal phenomena. They end up consulting some demonologists, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are very much real people. I do believe this film is based off of a real story. And basically, Ed and Lorraine are there to try to help them get rid of this evil entity, this spooky demon that is haunting them.
I like the fact that you called it classic because that film is literally from 8 years ago.
What has a huge cult following already?
That's true. And
not that I'm on the young people's side. I'm just...
Daniel, why don't you and your compadres tell us all about why you picked The Conjuring? What do you like about The Conjuring? Why does it matter to you?
Yeah, Riley, JT, do one of you guys want to start?
I can start. So once again, like with the action film, and this being, of course, Kat's genre, it was hard to find one that both Steve and Kat had not seen, which we failed to do, of course, because Kat had seen this movie. But this movie in particular, for me at least, has like a special place in my mind, because I know I've told like all of you guys before, I watch this movie every single year, and it has some of my top all-time horror movie scenes in it. So it was also one of the first ones that I watched. I think the first ones that I watched were Annabelle Creations and The Conjuring. So not only was it the beginning of me watching horror movies, it's also one that I watch over and over, and it doesn't get any worse for me. So that's why I chose it, at least.
Jason, did you?
Oh, yeah. So I didn't actually see The Conjuring.
Oh.
That's not true. That is not true. I know you've seen The Conjuring. Jason's never seen the movie. Actually, it's just never happened.
What, his movie?
No, well, we were struggling to find one, but we had better picks. And then I had better picks, but then they haven't seen it. But we chose it because we all saw it, and it is a classic movie. It started a cinematic universe, a Conjuring cinematic universe. There's all these spinoffs. So we thought it was a good choice because I guess in terms of horror for our generation, that's like our Iron Man 1 for horror. That was the starting point. It is good. It is good. It's got good effects. Story is decent. Has that magic element. It's like a classic horror movie. Yeah.
I almost sent you guys a picture last night because I slept with my light on.
You slept with your light on?
I tried to turn it off, and then I rolled over so my back was towards the door, and I was like, nope. And I turned on the light and faced the door.
Too spooky.
It was spooky.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. This did start the CCU, Conjuring Cinematic Universe. And actually, just like Riley, this was one of the first, I guess, horror movies that I actually watched. I know I seen what was it, like Freddy versus Jason when I was like really young, and I snuck in and was like watching it while like my cousin or something was watching it. So I don't even think I fully watched that, but movies like that are kind of demony have never been my thing. But I think The Conjuring was like one of the first actual horror movies that I watched. And I remember like I wasn't that scared of it. Like there was that one scene where that like old witch demon like was on top of the wardrobe. That was a scene that actually like scared me the most. Watching it this time, I laughed. Like I was not scared at all. Yeah, I think just for myself, like when I was thinking of horror movies, I was like, okay, well, a lot of the spookier movies that I've seen are more thrillers, psychological thrillers. That's one of my favorite genres. But actual horror, like I haven't seen a lot of them. So I'm glad that we were able to go with this one. It was really nice watching it again. I will be honest, I was kind of bored because it wasn't scary this time around. I ended up watching The Silence of the Lambs after it because I was like, it wasn't spooky enough. And then Silence of the Lambs wasn't that spooky, so I was kind of like, oh, okay. But no, it's a really good movie. I think they did it really well. And I like that it's supposed to be based off of a real thing. I don't know how real it is. For all I know, Evan and Lorraine could be complete frauds.
Yeah, it's based off of their case file.
Yeah, they were not frauds.
Well,
they attended those university lectures that we saw them reproduce.
Okay.
Listen, you said you saw Freddy versus Jason when you were a kid, and I was 23 when that movie came out. So we are showing my age. I was getting married that year.
Yeah. So no, this was it was a good movie. Like I would definitely watch it again, but I think now that I'm older, it's not as scary as I remember it to be. Because I know that I watched it when it like pretty early, like after it came out. So I was probably 13 or 14, watching it at 2 a.m. with my cousins. So it was definitely a lot spookier back then. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of why we decided to go with The Conjuring and how we felt about it. But I'd love to hear from you oldies if you can remember that far back when we watched it yesterday. Did you guys like it? How do you feel about it? Was it spooky?
Yeah, you go ahead. You go ahead. And for the record, I like the term oldies, like golden oldies, better than the geriatrics that you were calling last week. But anyway. Go ahead, Kat.
Listen, you guys won hands down. There's no question. Like this round, you killed it, slayed it. I mean, you're like, it wasn't spooky. So you're telling me you didn't have to sleep with a nightlight last night? Okay, just me. I love horror movies. My heart hurts a little thinking of our pick, but it was a good one. And I did have to sleep with a nightlight on because, well, I mean, it was okay. I did have to sleep with a nightlight on because I love psychological thrillers and I love spooky, scary movies, but like anything with demonology or like religious undertones scares the poop out of me because I feel like it's just so much more real to me, which is weird living in Scarborough that, I mean, the break and enter movies don't scare me, but the demons scare me. But yeah, no, it was so spooky and I hadn't seen it in a while. So it was so good to see. And sometimes I get mixed up with all the different genres or the different like movie titles and stuff. But this one was so good and just has that creep factor of like, I think growing up in the church and being around the church and having some experiences myself with things that are spooky and unexplainable within the church as well as in my regular everyday life. I've had a lot of experiences, so that kind of stuff always plays with me and it just kind of sticks with me a little bit longer than the psychological thrillers do. So I loved it. I'll admit it. I've seen it probably 4 or 5 times and I still get scared. That clapping scene in the basement, oh, forget it. Like, I'm just like, no, thank you. But
That
you guys
clapping
definitely...
scene is so good. It is so good.
Scary. There's so many...
done perfectly. It could not have been done better, that scene.
It really does set the tone. And when they're playing that, like, hide and seek game, like, because of these types of movies, I won't be blindfolded. I won't let anyone, like, block my vision. But, there's so many times that I watch these kind of movies, and I know everyone does, where it's like, if I was in that movie, it would have lasted probably 30 seconds. I would have seen something like out of the corner of my eye, even if it wasn't a ghost, and I would have been like, burn the place down, I'm out of here. Like, it would have been the world's fastest horror movie if I had been in it. But
as soon as the dog refused to go in the door,
yes!
The cat was gone.
I'd be like, listen to the dog. Dogs always know. I'll live in the car. But yeah, I loved it. So good.
Yeah, I have.
You're not the horror person, Steve.
I'm not a horror person. Okay, I mean, we'll get to this when we get to Gremlins, really. Maybe it can come out now. So I am like, this is not my space. This is not my space. So I was pretty jacked up before we even put this movie on. I was like dreading this night to see Conjuring for similar reasons to what you said. It's funny, like I'm okay with like violent movies or movies about killers or stuff like that. I'm fine with those. When you get into the demonic stuff, I'm like, I'm a pastor. A little too real for me because I believe this stuff. Now it's funny, and Kat, maybe you can answer this. I mean, they can too, but I'm thinking of you because of your history with the horror films. It feels like to me, in the last 20 years, it's more about the demonic stuff than it was when we were growing up. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't exist, but it's not this. It's not like the percentages imbalanced. I might be wrong on that. I don't know. Like,
possession movies have been around for a long time. Like, if you think back all the way to The Exorcist, and then you've got Poltergeist, that was a demonic entity, and then there was like all of the exorcism of Emily Rose and all of that stuff.
That was recent.
That was, but I remember, back in the day. A lot of it too was like
the Freddy movies. I don't know if he was I guess he was kind of a demon.
He was kind of, but it wasn't the same thing. Like, he was in your dreams, and Like Michael Myers was
They were serial killers.
a normal person. Yeah, it was more like a serial killer, like monster-esque movie.
Yeah. So that, I mean, now this is part of the reason that we ended up with Gremlins. I haven't seen any of those anyway. I just didn't. Like we literally had like 5 horror movies to choose from because we were trying to find something we'd both seen. Gremlins just happened to be the one that the others hadn't seen. But I have to admit, watching it, even though it is a terrifying film to me that makes me uncomfortable for a number of reasons, it was well made. And that, things like the clapping scene, there's that fall for like 20 stories down or whatever it is that she like rips herself through the floor. That got me. That made me jump. And it is well made. It is I actually came out of their way. Well, I totally understand how that became a franchise and why it became a thing, other than the fact that they literally have a room of spin-offs in their basement where it's like, oh, any number of these things can be possessed. And then you can almost hear the director saying, which one shall we explore next? But it is good. It is good. Is it my cup of tea? No. But I thought it was, I was very impressed with it.
You have to sleep with the light on?
No, but I was not.
He has Alicia.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I did sleep with the light on, and she was really mad.
But you did have to walk Holly.
I did have to walk the dog at 11:30, and that was no fun at all. Especially where I live, it's like, and it was a dark, windy night. It's like, yo, I don't want to be here. But I mean, explain to me, you guys, what, like, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I want to know why you guys love horror like so much and love that feel, like, because I'm a wuss, and I don't understand why people want to pay $15 in a theater to be terrified and do it again. I just don't get it. Legit question.
Yeah, so it's kind of along these lines, but it actually came to me while both of you guys were talking, because I'm of the same mindset of, I mean, I guess Steve, Kat, and Daniel, I don't know, JT, if you're along the same mindset because you didn't mention it or not, but that it's the demon stuff that gets me the most. And obviously because I believe in all of this, right? Like I believe in it. I know that it's real and that it could happen, and like I've had is like not the same as like Kat or other people may have had, but I've had weird stuff happen to me as well, right? But the difference for me is that is why I love it so much. Because I really, really like the sort of like adrenaline sort of feeling that you get from being that scared, right? Which is why I will rewatch Annabelle Creation so many times, even though, like I told you guys before, there is one scene in it that will make me poo in my pants every single time without fail, but I will still watch it. But the thing is why I like these type of movies, and especially The Conjuring, is because they scare me more because of that fact, and I like them because of that fact, if that makes sense.
No. Explain
okay.
why.
Daniel, would you agree, or?
No. No, I think honestly that's probably why although I think I'm gonna branch out and start watching some more demon-y things, because again, like The Conjuring wasn't that scary like now at 20 years old. No, like now, like again, The Conjuring didn't scare me, so I think I'm gonna try to like branch off a bit and watch some more horror, more demon-y horror. But like we've all kind of said, like I believe in demons and ghosts and ghouls. Obviously, I believe in murderers and psychopaths because those are just like real, legitimate things.
Daniel, you're telling me you still believe in serial killers? Come on.
Only a little. Just right under Santa. I'm like, serial killer Santa. No, but like, I don't know. It's always been like murderers. I'm kind of like, meh, whatever. Like, I can see you. I can touch a murderer, but like a demon can touch me, and I'm just gonna be like possessed, like flying through the air, crinkling my body. Like, I don't know. That's just always been so much more scary than like Michael Myers like kicking down my door and then just like stabbing me.
I'm sorry, I'm imagining Michael Myers coming towards you and you just sticking out your finger and poking him in the eye and running away.
I can touch you. I am not afraid.
Well, you're real.
You're not demony.
Fake. But no, like, I don't know. I've like demons have just always been like, if I watch the movie, that makes it more real than what I think it is. Whereas I feel like with murderer movies, I can kind of be like, well, this movie took place in Chicago. I'm in Toronto, so like I'm fine. But like demons can hop around anywhere. Like, so I don't know. I guess that I don't know. I don't know why I just always found demony ones more scary, but
it's because they're more like they're not as tactile. You can't like just like what you're saying. You can't fight off a demon or like do all the stuff that you could with like the Strangers movie where they like it was a home invasion. This is like, well, I guess I'm possessed.
What are you gonna do?
Oops.
Mondays, am I right?
Mondays.
I was gonna say something to your comment. Now I can't remember.
Opposite of Daniel, I think. I don't believe that I could ever get possessed or someone I know could ever get possessed. So when I see like demon movies, I'm just like, that'll never happen to me ever, or anyone I know ever. So I don't know, it's less scary. Like I would prefer like those murder ones, like where it's like, I guess, quote unquote real, just because that could happen. But when I'm watching a movie, it's not like, it's like a roller coaster. Like,
yes,
it's scary, but you know you're not gonna die, or most times you're not gonna die.
People die on roller coasters.
CNE.
It's like a roller coaster, but imagine the roller coaster doesn't actually go anywhere, and it's all like screens. It's like that.
So it's just a chair?
Yeah. I also don't like, for like, if I'm comparing horror movies, that because it's a demon, it feels like they could just do whatever they want, right? There's no logic to it. It can go through walls, they could do whatever. You might have a way to stop it in the story, but like there's always like, oh, it didn't work because it's magic. So plot wise, I prefer like the more real stuff. But I think it is interesting to see like this spirity stuff, just because it is, I guess, like, because like, I don't know, it's like different and you wouldn't ever really see it. It's like magical, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, sorry. Go ahead, JT.
No, keep going.
I was going to say, one thing I liked about this movie that I didn't expect, and actually, JT, I think that's really interesting. First of all, before I say that, is that would totally affect the way, if you don't think that this stuff's real, it's totally going to affect your viewing, and it's going to be much more fun, like a roller coaster ride for sure. Like just go for the jump scares. I totally see that. One of the things I liked about the film is that it actually took the spiritual aspects about it quite seriously. You know, I have seen that when I saw The Ring, like it's just sort of like demony. It's like, oh, there's a tape, and if you watch it and then you die, and it's like, but in this film, it's totally a commercial film. They're totally trying to make it, fun and scary, and people in the audience go, whoo, stuff like that. But
is that how you scream?
Yeah. And but No, they took the whole premise of it quite seriously, even to the fact of, the way that they implement things, the way that they treat the church and the spiritual aspects about it, and the opening. I thought actually that was very interesting. I didn't expect that in this, because I expected it more to just be like straight up commercial scares. Here's the demons, they're going to run roughshod over your house, sort of thing. But I actually appreciated the fact of, the Warrens were real people. Whether or not you believe of what they went through or not is another story. But I felt like they tried to take care of them and preserve them as real people in the midst of these like crazy circumstances.
Lorraine actually just passed away a couple years ago.
What was the date?
She died August 23rd, 2006.
Wait, wow.
So she was 79 when she passed away. And Judy is her real daughter. I was going to say with what Jason said is that's what really gets me about these scary movies is that it is, I feel like, a roller coaster. I used to love roller coasters when I was younger. I would go on every single one of them. And I just loved that drop in your stomach feel as you were going over and the build up going up. And I feel like really good horror movies can do that and kind of give you that same rush. The other thing I was saying that's good about Conjuring, you can edit out the part. The other good thing I was thinking about The Conjuring is, for the most part of the movie, it does a lot of what I really like in horror movies. There was a time back in the day, around the time when in prehistoric times, around the times of The Exorcist. Now, I wasn't alive when The Exorcist came out and the first Black Christmas, but I did get to watch them later in life. But they always had this theme of, you didn't show the demon, you didn't show the bad guy. It was kind of like they were just always there and then someone died. And then, for Black Christmas, you never saw the face of the killer when they were doing the killing. Or Paranormal Activity, it wasn't like an actual demon. It was just like you could see it on the cameras, but you couldn't see the actual like entity. And those are the ones that really get me and they scare me, because it's like you never know what's going to happen. You don't know what these are, and they're actually like more in your head scary than whereas around like 2005 the whole Saw movies came out and Hostel, and it was just like really like a gore fest. And Human Centipede, which I think was suggested by Jason.
Yeah.
Those ones all came out, and those were the ones that I can't handle. Like, it's just gore and like really like torture, really. But I like that now some of these horror movies are going back to that element of like, we're not going to show you everything scary. Like, you're going to have to build this up in your head. And I think, we did see the demon a couple of times in The Conjuring, but I think they did a really good job of that kind of aspect too.
I think, and I'm probably wrong on this because he probably quoted someone else, even if it ever was him. I think it was Spielberg that said that the scariest thing is the thing you don't see.
Exactly. Agreed.
And that was his whole basis of Jaws. Other than the fact that they just didn't have the effects that they could, and it was really difficult to shoot. It was scarier to have a soundtrack and things moving than it was to actually see a giant shark for the entire movie.
And it's proven in the fact that several of us are mentally traumatized by that movie and can't even go into swimming pools with bubbles around them without thinking there's a shark there.
Yeah. I and like Kat, I agree with the whole like the not seeing it factor. In terms of movies that have come out like more like when I was alive, the one that like The Conjuring, obviously it's scary because of the not seeing the demon. But when you were sort of talking about stuff more like Jaws, and I like it, along that line, I mean like more real life, less demony. I immediately thought of it only came out a couple of years ago, but Unfriended the Dark Web, where it was like a different kind of horror, because like even though like yes they were tangible people, you never actually saw them in like the webcams or anything. They were always the anonymous photo. You never saw them in the videos except for in the background or in a really glitchy, hazy photo. And that one, I watched it the first time I watched it on my laptop and my power went out and I cried. Okay, like that was not fun.
I actually watched that and I thought it was pretty well done. It was like, oh, this is gonna be a dumb movie, and then it was like, eep.
It was a fun premise.
Yeah.
They say that I mean, we can talk about this with Gremlins too, but they say that with any film, I guess, but certainly with horror best exemplifies the fears of the time and the culture. Or why are you laughing at that?
And in the 80s, it was Furbies for what reason?
I don't know. I'll get to that because I got Gremlins.
It was the non-American machines.
Right. That's right. Racism. That was
The racism. That's what it was. Okay.
But with The Conjuring, see, this is why I was wondering about the percentage of like demon films now that we see, or even like Unfriended, obviously, because we all live in a Zoom world, but like, or social world. The types of fears that are exhibited by our horror are showing different things than they would have when we were watching things, or when we started watching. Well, when Kat started watching horror films.
Hey, babe.
So, but I don't know I don't know what that says about The Conjuring per se, but I know that like I look at films like The Invisible Man or Get Out, and I'm like, these are very socially conscious horror films. Us, socially conscious horror film. But I'm not sure how that plays in with Conjuring, but it's just something I was thinking about when we were prepping for this.
I think demonology has followed us throughout the ages. It's something that can't be tangibly witnessed, in a sense that like we do have records of exorcisms in the church, and even up to today's standards, there's still those kind of things. But demons, just religion and demons and entities of that, like they're just the ones that just keep going. They keep growing with us.
But for your generation, not our generation, but for you other three, is that stuff less scary now? Like, is that stuff like, I mean, Kat and I are talking, and we're talking about how, well, yeah, religion goes through the ages and all that stuff, but the world has shifted. And there's a lot more people, like Jason saying he doesn't believe in demons. I mean, I know, I'm sure that's a more common thread than it would have been. That's what I'm saying. Like when we were growing up, maybe the serial killers were more prominent because you didn't mess with the other stuff as much. I don't know. I'm just, like I said, horror, not my genre, but I'm just saying.
I get what you're saying, and I think you're right to an extent, like with the whole like sort of like modern horror being a different type of horror, following more like, like the Unfriended series and like Us and stuff that's like different types of horror. But I think to say that is the horror that is scary now would be an overstatement, because I think although a lot of people from like maybe our generation, maybe more, or not necessarily like a lot, but like more now, don't believe in demons, I don't think that necessarily makes the movies any less scary. I think they're just then scary for the fact that they are just scary versus the fact that it's scary because it's something that people can relate to.
But the following movie does not represent my feelings or the ideas of this person.
But come on, Kat. Like, come on, watch it.
It was so good to watch it again.
Right? I mean, it's
how
not
cute
a bad.
is Gizmo?
It's not a bad pick. It's just not a good horror movie example. Directed by Joe Dante and starring Phoebe Cates and Zach Galligan, Gremlins tells the story of Billy, a young teenager who receives an adorable gift in Gizmo, a young creature that mysteriously transforms and wreaks havoc on the city when fed after midnight.
The genre is sci-fi / horror / comedy.
Yeah, it's across the board.
That's what Gremlins felt.
Yeah. But having said that, I defend the pick of Gremlins after watching it again. Cat can speak. I even got my Christmas gear on because this movie it's a blast. Now, is it scary? Not now. It was for me at 7 or 6 years old. There is a huge difference between Gremlins and Gremlins 2, the new batch. Huge. It is like Gremlins 2, the new batch is basically just a silly comedy because by that point, everyone was so obsessed with Gizmo that they had to make it more kid friendly, and it became just bonkers. Like, it's just ridiculous. The whole movie is ridiculous. Sillier than this one. But I defend this one because, again, I was reminded watching it what a criticism it was of 80s culture, criticism of capitalism, and our obsession with technology and money. And this was from the right in the smack middle of the greed is good decade. And I mean, I think I said, but when we were talking before this, that this was a year after after Cabbage Patch Kids. So there was this sly almost shot at innocence in this film. And even I love the fact that, I mean, as soon as Spielberg's name is on something, you know it's going to be a certain type of film. I love the fact, though, that this is like 2 years after E.T., which was the most adorable like creature ever, and everybody was obsessed with E.T. And then, well, first of all, E.T.'s in the film, but this is almost like the anti-E.T. Yeah, you get the cute, but the cute has a dark side. No, it doesn't hold up in terms of the racial content. I'm not gonna lie, it does not. I'm not even gonna try and defend it. It does not hold up. There is some stuff in those 80s movies that we just didn't notice. Now we look at it and it's very different. But so I defend the pick of Gremlins. I still think it is a worthy pick, even though there are 800 other ones that would have been better. But I don't know, Kat, what?
It was nostalgic. It was very nostalgic. I remember my sister was very scared of the bad Gremlins when we were younger, but she was also scared of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when the kid gets sucked up the fudge pipe. So, oh wait, that doesn't sound right. I hit that out.
Not the fudge pipe.
You know when he falls in the river and it's fudge and then he gets sucked up and he's really chunks so he can't fit, so we always had to turn it off at that point. Never got past that because my mom would make me turn it off even though I wasn't scared.
That's a scary movie, man. That's a scary movie.
Watch out for those fudge pipes. It was really nostalgic though. Like I was like, as soon as I saw Gizmo, I was like in love with him all over again. Like, oh my gosh, he's so cute. And yeah, you're right. Like it has nods to all of those, like greed and like good versus evil and like, you know, the good guy winning. It was masterful when we were younger about the animatronics and like Gizmo blinking and like doing all of those things. I remember everyone wanted to have one of those. And again, it goes right back to our generation of that 80s greed in the sense that really all movies, TV shows, and cartoons were marketing ploys. They were selling us toys. Mm-hmm. So like these toys were already on the shelves when the movies came out and right in time for Christmas. So it's so fun to look back and think like everything I enjoyed as a kid was just a giant commercial. And we were just such big consumers back then. My mom waited 3.5 hours in line to get me a Cabbage Patch doll. So we were like that kind of consumer. But I mean, a lot of things don't translate to now. And it was definitely nostalgic, I would say, but not scary in what I would put forth in a
In 1984, though, it was a scary-ish movie. It was a scary-ish movie in 1984.
It was like back when we first saw it. It was scary. Like, I don't know if you remember, I think it was Jennifer Aniston's first movie was Troll. No,
Leprechaun.
There was another movie called Troll that my mom accidentally bought us because she thought it was the cute trolls, but it was like demonic trolls. But yeah, like Leprechaun was scary back in the day.
It was, and this film was actually criticized for its violence.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of violence in there.
And not only, it's doing it for a laugh too, but I mean, like that woman, the whatever her name was, the
girlfriend.
No, Mrs. What's her name? That is a brutal death, where she gets thrown out the window in her chairlift. That is a brutal death. That is a brutal death in 1984.
She deserved it.
That's the thing. You're like, yeah, wait, no. But we should hear from the youngins.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about it.
I gotta hear. Let us have it. Go for it. Gremlins.
Two things. One, my mom heard me laugh when Kat mentioned her sister being scared at Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and texted me to remind me that in kindergarten I was scared of the Paperback Princess.
Aha!
So the dragon was very scary. I don't know, but in terms of the movie that we watched.
Why did you put
it's got quotes.
What is this? Movie.
So about halfway through, I was texting my girlfriend, and the exact quote that I used was, "This movie is so bad for the simple fact that it is old, that it is hysterical." It was an experience. In terms of horror, no. I know, and it's to explain because it's old. I was talking about the CGI sort of factor that we were talking about before, right? Like the Gremlins, like it was like, okay, it was a movie.
It was a
movie, and it came out, and you made me watch it. So those are my thoughts.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes.
I think it definitely, like, I'm not surprised Riley acted that, like, said that.
Yeah. I'm not surprised he acted that way.
Because, if you're comparing, like, the special effects with Conjuring and Gremlins, it's like Gremlins is, well, that definitely doesn't hold, right? It looks very fake, animatronic. It's definitely laughable. Like, if you compare it, I'm sure like someone 50 years from now watching both movies will probably like Conjuring more, just because effects have gotten so much better. And then for us too, I like, until you started saying like, oh, that was the age of like high greed, consumerism, everything was an ad. Like, I didn't even think about that when I was watching Gremlins. So I think, if I was someone growing up in that era, I'd really appreciate it more, like all the messages. But because I didn't even know that going into it, I was like, man, why? They're really trying to sell me on everything. It's like a
statement.
Yeah, it's like it's like one of those Michael Bay films with like 200 ads every movie, but this one seemed more obvious. But it's obviously hinting at like, I guess they're criticizing the consumerist culture back then. I also did not like the racism.
Yeah,
it's not good.
No,
like it started off very casual, like that guy who said something super racist like right at the beginning, and then the guy brushed it off. And then the Asian actor was just man, he. I hope they paid him well. Read. I don't know. It's obviously a different time, but it's crazy. It was how many years ago that was? Probably like you said 1980s, right?
84. It's almost 30 years.
But it is
Almost 40
crazy.
years. 40. Sorry.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay. Well, it is crazy because it's like, a lot of roles during that era. Whatever minority you are, there were a lot of roles where like, okay, you're clearly gonna be this a stereotype, or like this, like you're the butt of the joke and you have to do it. And then it's like, and then seeing that, it's like, oh god, that hurts.
It's true because it was like you can think of a lot of different people, like Short Round in
Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom. There were so many other like people that were treated so poorly in these movies and just exactly pegged in this whole. The thing that made me kind of like, I don't know if it, like I was obviously very aware of how this man was being portrayed. Well, when he came and he picked up what's his name? Gizmo, and you had said he's not even speaking the language of the
Mogwai.
Gremlins, Mogwai. I was like, I didn't eat, like, you don't even realize those things, right? If you're not aware of it.
Yeah, and then like, I mean, maybe that was like where it originated from. I've seen that character before as well, in like older shows like Simpsons, like the old guy in the shop. It's all magical.
The monkey paw.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm like, oh, this is like, I guess that's where the stereotype originated from, which is kind of crazy to see.
Well, I think you're like, it's funny. Like, I remembered that aspect of it. What surprised me was the conversation of the two main of what's his name, the main guy, and the girl as they're walking, and
The conversation about Christmas, right?
yeah, I think he says something like, "What are you, Hindu?" And it was like, what?
And that came right after the suicide line, and it was just it was a lot all at once.
Yeah.
And he said it as like an insult too. Like what are you?
Exactly.
Like, he was disgusted. And it was so casual, and then she's like defensive, like no.
Yeah. No, that and I mean that yeah, I mean this is the reality of the subtle messages that were in the films that Kat and I grew up with. They just simply were there. And we weren't taught to look for them. Like I
think that there were definitely, for me, like it was a little bit more awareness of it, in the sense that, like, because I come from a family that's biracial, that you could see you would feel the difference and you could see it. But definitely people in the 80s thought that way. And even the guy who was talking about foreign cars, and they put gremlins in these cars and they sell them to Americans so they'll break down easier and stuff like that. Like, that kind of stuff was really about the 80s. And yeah, like, I think it was definitely something that was, for me personally, was noticed throughout, because we knew that there was also racism towards our family and stuff. So it was hard, but it was definitely a message that was allowed and that was accepted, and it's not okay.
Yeah. I'm not even going to defend it. I'm not even going to defend that aspect of it, because we can't. There were just those things going. You're right. I forgot about the foreign cars. Now it is interesting that man gets killed by the same American-made, good old American-made device that he was espousing.
Yeah, I think that was how you were talking about how this movie like was making jabs at like, like the whole the culture of the 80s. I feel like that was another just sort of jab at that.
Yeah.
In terms of the fact that it was his plow that he was hyping up so much.
There's a lot of debate and a lot of people didn't like it, but Wonder Woman 1984 does a good job of its criticism of 80s culture, and the me generation. That was what it was called. We were the me generation, and greed is good was a mantra. It was from a film. It was from Wall Street, but it became a very pop mantra for the generation, for the 80s. And actually, when we think about it, tying in the two conversations, in so many ways, this me first idea fits into the racist undertones that undergirded the culture. Like, it was very much a culture that was white dominated in terms of, well, in generally, but I'm talking about Hollywood specifically. And I think you see that in this film is the me first aspect. Because it leads to those stereotypes. It leads to those sorts of subtle digs that I wonder. I don't know how people would have reacted to that in the theater. I don't know how people would have reacted to that at the time.
At the time, they would have laughed.
Yeah, I was talking to my mom about it afterward, just before we started, and like because she went to see it in theaters when it came out, and she was like, "Yeah, no, I didn't even realize." Like watching it back then, right? Mm-hmm. Like I told her about I think I told her about the scene where they were walking together on the street, Billy and the girl. And she was like, "Wow, no, didn't catch that at all."
And that was basically what people our age had, was you didn't catch it. It went over your head. And now you watch these movies today and you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that we sat and we listened to this and it was okay. And I don't know. Daniel, what did you think? Did you love it? Still scared?
This was my favorite movie ever.
I knew it.
I have to agree with Riley. It was a movie. It was about an hour and 40 minutes long. It was called Gremlins.
And we watched it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there was nothing horror about it. Like, yeah, even the spooky gremlins weren't scary. It was there. Like, I don't know. I don't want to like hate on it, but like,
feel free to hate on it.
I didn't like it. I was so bored.
Yeah. Actually, sorry, just to interject just really quickly, one thing, Daniel, that you brought up that I forgot to mention before was my opinion is coming at this from the horror genre. Like, if you had posed this to me as a comedy, I probably would have liked it, but because it was posed to me in the horror genre, no.
It's a fair comment.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, like, the scene where they were like around the poker table and like that's definitely not horror. Like,
I'm not gonna lie, I felt like I could defend it as a horror movie most of the way through it until that scene, and I'm like, oh, there it goes. It's done now.
Are you kidding me? It wasn't when the gremlins were driving the plow and there was a random music playing, and
that was great. Okay, I'm sorry, Daniel, were you going to say something?
Yeah, sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I agree with Riley. Looking at it as a horror movie, it was not good. I think personally, looking at it from a comedy standpoint, it also wasn't that good. I also didn't find it funny. I mean, the funniest parts to me were when Gizmo was twerking in labor and birthed out the first set of other gizmos.
That wasn't even funny.
People got zoomed out of the window on her like chairlift. Only parts I found funny. It was kind of hard to watch. I was so bored.
Did your mom stay for the whole thing?
No, she went for a shower like halfway through. She was like, I'm just gonna go take a shower now.
I'm not gonna lie, if I'd seen it on TV, I would have been like, oh, Gremlins, and then watched 10 minutes and been like, and anyways.
Judge Judy, sure.
You guys win hands down.
Yeah.
I would say, just for interest's sake, there's a movie that just came out a couple of months ago called Shadow in the Cloud. It is just that crap nuts. Like, it is just so weird. But you know, when I've always thought of Gremlins as Gremlins, I never really associated them truly with that whole mythology of the gremlin on the airplane, you know, from World War One. I don't know why I never drew. I mean, I knew that was a thing, but I never associated this movie with it. And there's direct ties. I mean, they do it in their voiceover. But it is really interesting to see Shadow in the Cloud as just like this wild, ridiculous thing. But to see what essentially a Gremlins would look like now compared to what this one was. But I mean, the interesting thing about that movie, and JT can back me up on this, but that movie ends up being like this feminist empowerment message compared to this one, which is almost the opposite. Women do not come off well in this film. But JT, like you that's what you had said to me as well, right?
Yeah, it was like surprisingly a really good feminist film. The way they handled the main character and like the way they spoke and just like the overall story that was written. And there's no like cringe, like I'm getting into Shadow in the Cloud, but there's no like cringe girl power moment or anything. Everything felt like natural. It was a good movie, very good feminist movie.
It's wild. Like it's Gremlins level nuts. It's the only movie I've ever seen where somebody explodes into an airplane. Like it's insane. But it is interesting to see how the messages, going back to those messages, to see how we want to tell our stories now as opposed to how we told our stories, 40 years ago. 35 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking to the women in Gremlins, the mom was a badass. She killed like 3 gremlins on her first shot, and then the girlfriend handled herself in that bar pretty good.
She took pictures.
She not only served everyone in the bar when she was alone, which is very difficult in the service industry.
And they didn't even tip her.
Right?
They tried to shoot her.
And she had that flasher gremlin in there. But she helped out somewhat. But yeah, you're right. Like, I don't know, that mom, she can handle herself.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Sticking one in the blender and one in the
microwave.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the microwave. That was brutal. I was like, man, like
it's hardcore.
That was hardcore. Way to go, Mom. Props to Mom.
Popcorn
That's
setting.
why when you mentioned the most brutal death being some lady being thrown out the window, I was like, did you just forget about the entirety of the mother scene?
Fair. I forgot about that.
I think it's fair to say ours this time does not age as well as the fugitive.
It did not. All right. Okay. Before we hit the vote, let's do this real quick. Scariest movie you've ever seen? Go.
What type of scary?
Oh, jeez. It's
yeah. You gotta break it down.
I don't know. Movie that scared you the most.
Oh, so the scariest movie we've ever seen?
I'm trying to. Yes,
Okay, yeah, okay. Now I get it, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying.
I do what I can.
I'll say the one that affected me the most and kept me up at night, i.e., lights on while I was sleeping in the recent past, was Paranormal Activity 1.
Oh, it's a classic.
Did not enjoy that movie, but we'll watch it again with you guys if you want to, because you have to see it.
Okay,
one that
Riley, go.
Yeah, sorry. The one that probably like in terms of not only like affected me after the movie, but also during, in terms of like the most like vocalized screams during it, was probably actually Insidious 3.
Yeah, that's a scary one.
What's the standout scary moment in those films? Because I always, when I'm
There's this one scene. Like, I cannot remember anything else from the movie except for this one scene where the old lady, I forget what she's called, but the like whatever type lady.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. She's walking through the house, right? And she goes into the closet and this demon thing drops from the ceiling. No, that one scene, I don't have a door on my closet anymore. I took it off.
What?
I have an open closet now because I am not opening the door to a closet to have an old naked lady drop from the ceiling on top of me. Okay? Ooh. It was a very, very traumatizing scene in many ways.
What movie was this?
Insidious 3.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
The Fudge Pipe.
That sounds like an adult movie.
Okay. All right. So naked ladies, or old naked ladies in the closet. That's fair. Daniel, JT, what's your scariest movie?
Mine was, I think, and it's not like realistic. It's Sinister. Have you guys seen that?
Another really good one. Yeah. What you guys?
I only saw the second one. I didn't see the first.
Yeah, that was a good one, JT.
Yeah, I really liked it because there was like an overarching story with it, and it was like a mystery with what was going on in the house and everything, and with the villain spirit thing. I think it also felt pretty natural in the way, like, it wasn't just setting up the next jump scare. It was like, I want to know what the mystery is and what's going on, as opposed to let's try to catch this ghost and like stop this ghost. Like, there was more story elements into it.
That's so good. So scary.
It is scary.
Daniel?
I think the scariest movie I've seen that like affected me the most and affected me for the longest was probably Freddy versus Jason. Again, like, I was really young. I want to say like between the ages of 4 and 6 or something, when I was like, I wasn't supposed to be watching it. It was like late at night, so I was like sneaking and watching it. But I remember having like so many nightmares of like Jason like climbing up and like breaking through my window, or Freddie doing the same thing like in my dream, or I guess not really dreams, in my nightmares for like years after that. So I guess that movie, because it affected me the most. I have like a TV show episode that scared me for a really long time. And this is going to sound so weird, and I don't know if any of you will know it, but it is the zombie Halloween episode of the cartoon 16.
Oh, I've seen it.
That episode scared the crap out of me for so long, and I have no idea why. It's literally stupid now.
It's a good episode. It's like a 1 hour special. Like,
yeah.
I guess it is like bad looking back because, well, it was like a comedy, right?
I guess. Oh, you know what? No. Scooby-Doo Zombie Island. That was the scariest movie for the longest time. When I was younger, especially, zombies were the scariest thing.
I respect that. I respect
Fudge
that.
pipes.
Fudge
Steve's scariest movie? Gremlins?
No.
Conjuring?
I might have said The Ring because the experience after watching The Ring was pretty intense for me because everybody left and the TV was on. But no, that would be a lie. It would make me look like a tough guy. The scariest film, the film that scarred me for my entire life, was Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Has anyone heard of this movie?
Irish.
What?
Yeah. It was Sean Connery's first movie. Hear me out. I was 7 years old. Now, you all have to understand, because in your Netflix world, it was exciting for us to get a VCR. Like, you were balling if you got a VCR.
I have a VCR.
Yeah. And it's probably in your basement covered by a bunch of junk. This was a prized possession in 1983 and 1984. Going to the video store, you couldn't even get all the movies you wanted to watch because there was VHS and all the good movies were in beta, but nobody had beta.
That was the worst.
Okay.
Who had beta?
Seriously. I'm going somewhere with this. So my parents were going out for a date night, leaving my sister in charge. And they went into the video store and they saw a VHS case with Walt Disney put on it. So they're like, great. We'll get a video. Steve will watch this movie for the kids, whatever. Steve and Lynn can watch this movie. My sister is 7 years older than me. She was upstairs on the phone, doing her homework, talking to friends, whatever. I don't know what she's doing. What's on the cover? Sean Connery talking to leprechauns. I'm telling you, it's like a fun family film, except because it's in Ireland, the end of the film, he comes face to face with the screaming banshee. It was the first time in my life I'd seen anything with a ghost in it like it wasn't a cartoon, any ghost, and it had this high shriek. And at the age of 6, I was hiding behind the chair over this ridiculous Disney film from the 60s, but it messed me up. That's probably why I don't like The Conjuring. It's probably why I don't like movies, because of stinking Darby O'Gill and the Little People. I'm telling you. Scariest movie ever. I'm not even joking.
There were a couple of episodes of The X-Files that terrified me.
Not more than Darby O'Gill. Or, and this just is ridiculous now, Kat, but maybe you can back me up on this. The Disney used to have their every Sunday at 6:00 or whatever it was, they would have their 1 hour specials. They did a 1 hour special. They did 2 of them for Mr. Boogedy. Do you remember Mr. Boogedy?
I'd have to look him up.
He was like the boogeyman, but it was like this Disney-esque horror film. And he used to go boogedy boogedy boo, and it sounds ridiculous. It is ridiculous, but I was like 10. It was terrible.
They have the Mr. Boogedy movie in 1986, and then in 1987 they came out with Bride of Boogedy.
They did. There was a sequel. I did not do well with that stuff even back then. Anyway, so there's my scary picks. Anybody who's listening to this, yep, there it is. Thank you for that.
Bride of Boogedy.
Anybody who's listening to this can secretly laugh and judge me. I don't care. That's what messed me up.
Oh, Eugene Levy was in it.
That's like saying, oh, it was full of puppies. Like, I mean, don't make it. Oh, Eugene Levy. Oh, well, it must have been terrifying. Anyway, that's my scary. All right, let's do this thing.
Wait, sorry, saying that you were scared by a movie that had Eugene Levy in it, is that the equivalent of like me saying that like I was scared of a movie with like Kevin Hart in it?
Jumanji? Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of the equivalent of you saying you're scared of Jumanji.
Okay, you just sent me back. Scariest movie, changed my mind. The first Jumanji, not the new one, the first Jumanji.
I remember
Okay.
a lot of kids had problems with that movie. Yeah.
watched
You were the
that
right
movie.
age to be terrified by that film.
I watched that movie in like grade 4. I was like 8, maybe. No. That I was scarred for like probably a good like 2 years. I did not play board games.
I'm not playing the game of life, Mom, because what if it takes my life?
What if I get drawn into the board game and have to work a mediocre job just to support my twins and my wife in my minivan?
That's right.
No, mother, I won't be playing Monopoly. What if a small man with a monocle shows up at my door at 3 a.m.?
Drops down from your closet.
It
Demands rent.
repossesses your house. No, I respect that.
That was scary for a lot of kids.
Most people don't remember the original Jumanji, and that is a dark movie, man. That movie is dark. Oh man, I rewatched it when we were doing we did a podcast on it. I'm like, this movie, it is a dark film. No wonder we're messed up, Kat. Anyway. Okay, respect, but let's do this. Let's do it. Let's hit the vote. What do we got? Horror, The Conjuring, or Gremlins? Let's
Do we have to say?
Do we have to count?
yes.
The Conjuring.
All right.
Yeah, me too.
I will actually be going with I will be going with the Conjuring.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with The Conjuring as well.
When the reviews are, it was a movie,
yeah,
you
that's
can
right.
kind of guess where it's gonna go.
You know, I mean,
Oh my god.
no, I'm gonna.
Steve, listen, I know people will tell you that perseverance is good, but there are times when you just need to give up.
No, I defend Gremlins for what it was, except for all the stuff that we talked about, which apparently I'd forgotten about. So that's a hard thing to sell. But
Which was the entirety of the movie.
It brought me such joy watching Gremlins, and I remember how terrifying it was for me at the age of 6 and 7. But if we're going on straight up, like true horror and well made, I will pick The Conjuring begrudgingly, but it's closer than you think it is.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
The nostalgia factor weighs heavily for me, I admit it, but I will admit that The Conjuring was really well made. And
Less racism.
less racism. Would I go back to watching The Conjuring again? No bloody way. But I would watch Gremlins again and then fast forward the parts that offended me that they do now. Actually, I don't even know if I could go back to it after this conversation. It makes me feel icky. But
Shame you.
what's that?
We'll shame you.
You'll shame me. It's a fair comment. The nostalgia factor is high. I think I had a stuffed Gizmo and I had the trading cards.
Oh, yeah, everyone did, yeah.
But all right. All right. So it's 1-1. Young Guns, you got your victory. And a clean sweep. That is two straight clean sweeps. One in our favor, one in yours. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again. And looking forward to next week. And looking forward to next week. And as always, it doesn't matter which movies you missed. What matters is they matter to you. So we'll see you next week.
Gremlins no longer matters to us.
Fair.
Gremlins